Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa on France 24. I'm Vedika Bahel, and here's the top stories from across the continent. Rwandan-backed M23 rebels say they've agreed to conditionally withdraw from the strategic Congolese town of Uvira at the request of Donald Trump's administration, after Washington said the rebels' entry into the eastern town violated the recently signed peace deal. The Uvira offensive in eastern DRC triggered tens of thousands of people to flee into neighbouring Burundi. Burundian officials say the majority of refugees are women and children and facing acute shortages of food, shelter and basic needs. And a new report by the World Meteorological Organization found temperatures in North Africa were their hottest on record in 2024. The rate of warming is accelerating alongside intensified heat waves, drought and extreme rainfall. Thank you for joining us. Starting with our top story, Rwanda-backed M23 rebels have said that they've agreed to a request from the United States to withdraw from the strategic town of Uvira in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Washington had criticized the armed group's seizure of the town last week, calling it a threat to mediation efforts. The rebels' entry into Uvira came just days after a US-brokered peace agreement was signed between Kinshasa and Kigali. Our correspondent on the ground, Emmett Livingston, has the latest.
On Monday night, the M23 rebel group announced that it would withdraw from the town of Uvira at the request of the United States. M23 and Rwandan forces captured Uvira on December 10th in violation of the US-brokered peace deal between Congo and Rwanda. The US last week accused Rwanda of violating the agreement by backing a deadly new rebel offensive in eastern DRC and warned that the Trump administration will take action against spoilers of the deal. The M23 has responded by saying it will withdraw unilaterally as a trust-building exercise designed to help peace talks between the Congolese government and the rebels. The M23 also called for Uvira to remain demilitarized. The Congolese government has not yet responded. Whether the rebels actually leave Uvira remains to be seen. According to local sources on Tuesday afternoon, M23 fighters were still on the ground.
That was our correspondent, Emmett Livingston there. Well, for more on this story, we have Samuel Baker-Biansi, investigative journalist from Rwanda and human rights advocate, joining us on set. Thank you so much for making time for us here on Eye on Africa. Now, this withdrawal is a significant development in the conflict in Eastern DRC. Now, in your opinion, what is Rwanda's strategy here with this withdrawal from Uvira?
Well, the US did not communicate to M23 or call out M23 to withdraw, but called out Rwanda to stop their aggression to DRC cities. And I look at this from two different points. First of all, Kagame might be testing how far the US is willing to pressure him to really withdraw from the eastern DRC parts. And also this withdrawal condition will not be easy to be implemented because if you talk about deploying of the neutral forces, it's not something you are going to deploy on time. It requires resources and a lot of time. And this delayed the withdrawal that was supposed to be implemented, which is in the Washington agreement, and which buy more time the aggressors in this situation. And I think Kagame is trying to really figure out not really withdrawing from the Eastern DRC while also acting as if he's withdrawing from the Eastern DRC.
Now, you mentioned the conditions there. I think that's a good segue into my next question. So one of the conditions was included a demilitarized zone in Uvira. Now, that would hinge on the Congolese army also withdrawing, I imagine, from the town. So do you think much is realistically likely to change there? I mean, you mentioned the neutral forces.
It's a little bit vague and not practical in a short period of time. And also, it can be deliberately done because Kagame himself is an evil genius, and I have been fighting these wars from 1996 with his security advisor, Kabarebe. So it can be a strategic way of not really withdrawing, but also behaving as if they are withdrawing from, actually from the parts of Eastern DRC. So it's something people have to look at it from not only the act itself, because the offensiveness to this city happened just a few days after signing this agreement, and it's not something that happened just when they were attacking. It's something that had to be planned and executed, and it have a purpose for it to happen there. So if you say you are going to let Uvira an empty space and you need neutral forces, this means more time, needs more resources, and also Rwanda and M23 by another reason to blame others apart from themselves, because if this is not implemented, they might and they will blame the party that is trying to really put together to solve the problem for not managing to create the neutral forces to be there.
Now, as you said, the offensive in Uvira, it came just a few days after that peace deal was signed in Washington. It did take everyone by surprise. In your opinion, what does this signify for the peace deal?
Well, the war in Eastern DRC is more of a strategic interest of different countries, and it's not more about the people on the ground and what they are fighting for. So that's why the U.S. Called out Rwanda and M23 had to withdraw. So it shows us that we have been seeing a lot of agreements signed by different parties. We saw the Nairobi agreements, the Luanda agreements. We see now what have happened in Washington, and still the offensiveness still go on. And this shows you the clear image of what the Congolese people that live in this part of the country have suffered the aggression of the Kagame's regime with evidence, and also the world need to really take critical actions, not signing more agreements because they are not really working.
I think that's all we have time for, but thank you so much, Samuel Baker-Byansi, investigative journalist and human rights advocate. Thank you for joining us here on Eye on Africa.
Thank you for having me.
The Uvira offensive in eastern DRC caused tens of thousands of Congolese residents to flee the violence and cross into neighbouring Burundi, a number that Burundian officials are placing at least 85,000 refugees. The UNHCR is organising temporary assistance despite overcrowding. Let's take a listen.
We started receiving refugees from the DRC on Friday, December 5th. Since then, we have already exceeded 40,000 people in just 1 week. As you can see, there are many children, elderly people, sick people, and people who have been injured by everything that has happened in Congo.
In Morocco, search and rescue operations continue in the coastal city of Safi. This after flash floods Monday left 37 people dead and caused widespread destruction in one of the city's oldest neighbourhoods. Morocco often faces severe weather and is struggling with severe drought for the 7th consecutive year, along with neighbours Tunisia and Algeria. In fact, 2024 was the hottest year on record for the Middle East and North Africa, according to a new report published by the World Meteorological Organization. Temperatures have been rising at twice the global average of recent decades, accompanied by more intense heat waves. There's also been extreme rainfall and devastating flooding in West and Central Africa, causing displacement and fatalities in Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Cameroon, to name a few. Now, for more on this, let's bring in a co-author on this report and senior climate scientist, Rashid Sibari. Welcome to Eye on Africa. Thank you for joining us. Could you tell us why is it that temperatures are rising at such an alarming level, particularly in North Africa?
Thank you very much for the invitation. I would like first to say that the State of Climate report for the Arab region in 2024 that has been released this month is the first one, and it's tells us that the Arab region climate is warming. It confirms that 2024 as the warmest year on record, not only over the Arab region, but also in all the 4 sub-regions of the Arab region, particularly in North Africa. In North Africa, we had an average annual temperature of 1.22 degrees Celsius above the 1991-2020 average. This anomaly is higher than the global as well as the Africa and Asia temperature anomalies, but it's lower than the anomaly registered in Europe. I think it's around 1.47 degrees Celsius. The report warns us that the warming is nearly twice as fast as the global average, driving more extreme weather events and posing serious threats to lives, ecosystems, and economies. Of course, the alarming level of temperature rising is because we do see a continued increase in atmospheric concentration of the major greenhouse gases, which reached, in fact, new records in 2024, and unfortunately accelerates climate change. North Africa has been the warmest because of its geography. The Sahara covers roughly 80% of the region, so it has a limited evaporative cooling, and this has been exacerbated by the deficit in rainfall and also by heat extremes that happened and occurred in 2024.
And Mr. Sabari, how has this directly impacted people on a human level, and also what does it mean for the environment and ecosystems?
I think it's important to highlight that as our climate warms, the most remarkable thing is that the extremes are the ones that change the most or are the most affected by the warming. And as a result, we are witnessing quite significant shifts in our extremes, including in temperature and precipitation extremes. And of course, it's these extremes that have the greatest impact on our societies. In 2024, floods, droughts, heat waves have been the most reported extreme events in the Arab region and also in North Africa. They affected 4 million people and resulted in more than 300 deaths. These extreme events exacerbates food security issues and affects water resources and agriculture productivity, which are very crucial for the region economy. And as you said, just 2 days ago, a flash flood killed at least 37 people in the coastal city of Safi in Morocco, and was unfortunately triggered by sudden heavy precipitation. So given the magnitude of the changes in the extremes, they remain a matter of serious concern and actually require prompt and robust policy intervention.
So we've obviously been talking about the rising temperatures in North Africa, but is it possible that this could affect the rest of the African continent, and how would that be possible?
Well, of course, global warming is affecting all the continents, not only the African continent or the Asian continent or the European continent. And there are state of climate reports that are produced by the World Meteorological Organization that show that. But the warming will not be uniform all around the world. Some regions will be or are warming faster than others. And also, while some regions are suffering from droughts, for example, like North Africa today, and in the future, because in the Mediterranean region, we will have more and more droughts in the future, others will get more rainfall. So temperature rising pose, in fact, potential threat to all continents through increased extreme weather events. And the impact will depend on each region, on its exposure to climate hazards, on its vulnerability, on the vulnerability of its population, and also on its resilience and on its capacity to adapt.
I think that's all we have time for, but thank you so much, Mr. Rashid Sabari, for joining us. He is a senior climate scientist and a co-author on that report by the World Meteorological Organization.
You are welcome.
Well, that's all we have time for on this edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to France 24. There's more world news coming up next with Alex Alcott.